away to a space that reminded me of an arena with its lights off. I could tell the space was expansive, mainly because of the floating red lanterns above. But other than that, I had no idea what to expect.
Activate this app and select 2 people to join you.
Iris had said.
You'll make a great alpha.
Easy enough, I had thought at the time. And sure, using the Monster Hunter app was illegal, but like most things, it was only illegal if you got caught. Besides, after the day I'd had, I needed something, anything, to add a bit of spark to my life. And regarding the law, I didn't intend to get caught.
You there!
A man twice my size stepped out of the shadow. He was bald, muscled, cross-eyed, unibrowed, and heavily tatted. Slung over his shoulder was a huge club with nails jutting out of its tip. Me? He swung the club into my chest, and I was tossed to the ground.
Sorry, Chase Knowles. You have died.
I respawned in the darkened arena. I could hear the murmur of people in the shadows, and despite the light provided by the paper lamps, I could barely make out their details. My peripheral vision was blurred, and I could only see clearly for a space of about 5 yards ahead of me. How am I supposed to choose someone, let alone 2 people? I thought, as I checked around me to make sure Baldy with the club wasn't planning to clobber me again. Iris didn't tell me that part. All she had said was, go home, lie down, install the app, and put in the access code.
You there!
Do we have to do this again? I asked the bald man with the club. He dropped down in front of my face, spit hurling from his mouth as he said,
You're too weak for me.
I was just about to tell him to get lost when I heard a sudden swooshing sound. A thin line of blood cut across his neck. Shock rippled across the burly brawler's face as he fell to his knees, blood misting from his throat.
I never liked that guy,
a woman said as she stepped out of the shadows. My eyes went wide as I took in a lean woman with orange hair, matching orange eyes, and a green complexion to her skin. The woman had high cheekbones, a long neck, elven ears pointing out of her hair. She reminded me of a cheetah, her gait hyper-balanced, her face slightly predatory even with the mischievous grin on her face.
Aya,
she said, extending her hand.
Aya Duchig.
Across her back was a monster of a sword, with a blade easily the size of a surfboard. I looked at it uneasily as we shook hands. I'm Chase. This is my, first time. She rolled her eyes.
Is that the way you normally talk to a lady? Because if so, it will always be your first time.
I chuckled at this, snapping out of my momentary surprise. Yeah, no, I don't really know what I'm doing. My friend Iris gave me this code, I activated it, and here I am. As Aya let go of my hand, a wave of green energy traced over her body. The words "bonded" appeared over her head, and I suddenly felt a closeness to her that reminded me, of all things, of the closeness I felt to Iris when we played music together. We bonded? I asked.
You're my new alpha, and I'm your new huntress. I would have preferred someone with a little more skin in the game, but I guess you'll do. You're pretty stylish, too, for a gamer.
She smirked.
You an artist or something?
Musician. The thought of what happened earlier that day flashed across my mind's eye. But I don't have any gear. Aya's orange eyes scanned me from top to bottom.
That's so.
I felt an invisible force grab my junk, and I jumped back. What was that?
Just some locker room humor. To be honest with you, I've been in here waiting for someone to arrive for far too long. Lots of big bad boy warriors in here, so I've learned to hold my own. And kill if need be.
An invisible force grabbed my hand, and I felt the sting of electricity move through me. I didn't know what it was exactly, but whatever was holding my hand didn't feel like a normal human hand at all. It felt like a talon, and from what I could gather, especially since it was leading me towards Aya, the invisible force was coming from her.
Out of the way!
I told a pair of orcs with skull epaulets. One of them turned, his eyes filling with anger as he saw me.
Watch it.
Aya said, without turning to the orc. He mumbled as I passed, but didn't make eye contact with the warrior woman.
So, you have questions, right?
Aya called over her shoulder. There seemed to be no rhyme or reason to where she was leading me. We moved through the crowd in the way one would navigate the crowd at a festival, just going where we could fit. I have a lot of questions, yes. She giggled and turned back to me.
You nervous or something?
I don't know if nervous is the right word. I'm a bit confused. I thought I was supposed to select the two hunters that join me, not the other way around.
You'd prefer someone else?
Sadness flashed across her eyes. No, I mean, nothing like that. I only get two, right?
Yes, and now that we've bonded, you only get one.
I just want to make sure the hunters I choose are balanced. Still holding my hand with an invisible talon, Aya lifted onto her tippy toes. She extended one leg out, grabbed her thigh with both hands, and as she stared at me curiously, she extended the leg completely up, her heel pressed towards the ceiling and her leg nearly parallel to her body. I get it. You're balanced.
There.
She snapped her leg back down and we continued into the crowd. There were a few other people like me here. People who had access codes, and each of them had an icon over their head indicating they were waiting to be paired with the two allotted hunters. I tried to wave at one, a guy with a military haircut, but he just ignored me. My eyes landed on a warrior female sitting on the ground with her legs crossed, a book in her lap. She wore incredibly sexy clothing, something like a maid outfit that had been merged with a suit of bristling armor. Typical male fantasy stuff. And half of her long brunette hair was braided at the side. The warrior female looked up at me. I looked away, and then I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned, expecting it to be another bald guy with a club, or possibly one of the berserker warriors I just passed with a morning star. I was pleasantly surprised.
I chose you.
The warrior woman said, her book now under her arm. Hearing that I'd stopped, Aya turned and approached us, her hands on her hips. She looked the warrior woman over and shrugged.
Not who I would have chosen for us, but I guess she'll do.
I thought I couldn't choose anyway.
That's right. What's your name?
The beautiful warrior female asked me. Her spouse appeared before me, but I was too mesmerized by the soft look on her face and the overall oddity of my situation to really pay attention.
Members of Thai massage parlors and stock
She
of
smiled lightly as she
Woodhouse
considered
Thai
me.
massage parlors.
I'm Lady Cassandra.
Expected green magic
Also,
spread over
Dear's
her body,
tax rates. You have
and
only
the
40
word
immigrants
bonded
within
appeared
your
above her head.
Shall we?
A number of Thailand's given hand
What
jobs,
do you mean?
get less terrorism.
Aya grabbed my hand.
This plan is already pretty much cocked into oblivion, so they might as well start paying to get hand
I
jobs
looked on
from
my bed.
massage parlors. Just take the country straight up, understand?
Moved my
Just
empty visor and stared at the ceiling for a moment. Once my vision settled, I placed my glasses on and sat up. My closet-sized room had never been something to brag about, but it was Bushwick, and living in Brooklyn was expensive. Hell, I was lucky to be able to find a place that I could sort of afford. Sure, I skipped some meals, and sure, I rarely broke even, but that was the cost of living in the city I loved. Damn, that was crazy. I blinked my eyes open and saw the pipe that ran across my room. I jokingly called it my limbo pipe because it cut through the room about 5.5 feet above the ground, and I was barely grazing 6, which meant I had to be extra careful at night not to run into it. You're here? Aya had her legs wrapped around the pipe and was doing curl-ups. Putting me to shame, she barely broke a sweat as she curled to one side and curled to the next, forcing breath out every time she reached full sit-up. Aya? I started to ask, still not able to comprehend the power of the Monster Hunt app. I mean, I'd heard that it augmented reality, but in my bedroom?
I think she really likes to work out.
Lady Cassandra was next to me now, her head propped up by her hand as she looked me over. She blew a strand of hair out of her face as my mouth dropped open. You're here, too?
Of course, you're our alpha. We'll always be with you now.
I reached my hand out to lightly touch Lady Cassandra's arm. Rather than passing through it, my fingers pressed into her exposed flesh. There was no feeling, though, which was weird. I mean, I touched something, but it didn't have the same sensation as actually touching someone's arm. That? I gulped. No fucking way. Iris? As soon as I said Iris's name, a picture of her formed on my retina. My iNet desktop. The singularity and its implications were something that the 2050s had to deal with. In the 2090s, we were fully connected through life chips installed in our temples and retina-based internet. The internet happened on my pane of vision in real time. It was never off. I was always connected.
Who is Iris?
Lady Cassandra asked.
Not me.
I said from across my small room, still doing sit-ups. Iris, I said again, as her icon blinked, letting me know she was just about to take my call. Using the brain's natural ability to augment things so they made sense, something that would totally make more sense to me as the next few days unfolded, Iris appeared in my pane of vision in all her three-dimensional glory.
Hiya.
Iris said, her big blue eyes settling on me.
Did you try the Monster Hunt code? Yes or no? Who are you talking to?
Lady Cassandra, still lying next to me, asked.
Are you okay, Chase?
I focused on Iris's face, which was still in my pane of vision as if she were in the room. Right now... Shit, I really don't know how to describe her, but let's just call her a dragon woman. She's doing sit-ups using the pipe in my room.
A Thulian.
Aya said with a grunt as she did another sit-up.
The correct term is Thulian. If you are talking to an invisible friend, tell them I am a Thulian. Do not refer to me as Dragon Woman.
Okay, she's saying she's a Thulian. Ring a bell?
That's so awesome! Hey, who are you talking to?
Lady Cassandra asked. I nodded. My friend Iris. She poked me and pointed to her own eyes.
You can see her, right?
I nodded.
Well, any friend of yours is a friend of mine. Tell Iris I'm here too. Are they speaking to you?
Yes. And let me guess, you can't hear them?
Right.
Iris said, her three-dimensional form wavering.
What's the other one like?
Warrior woman of sorts. I was about to say scantily clad, but decided against it.
I'm from Matika, a city in an extinct Proxima world known as Unagaia.
Correction, she's a Matikan from Unagaia. Did I say that right? I asked Lady Cassandra, who had since scooted closer to me. Iris laughed, her laugh loud and crisp in my inner ear.
So, you have two beautiful women, right?
You could say that.
The two hunters you chose are female, huh? Interesting.
I remembered then that I and Lady Cassandra couldn't hear Iris. Sure, that about sums it up. And another thing, these two chose me, not the other way around. You didn't warn me about that part.
I see.
What's so funny? I asked her, growing embarrassed.
You kind of have a harem going on.
That totally was not my intention. I would have chosen this big barbarian guy. I lied. But he killed me, and I had to start over.
Right, Chase, right.
She jokingly rolled her eyes. Look, they're here right now, just like you said they'd be, but I didn't think they'd be so real. I can seriously touch them.
Oh, touch me.
Aya shot a playful glance in my direction. She had finished doing crunches and was doing some type of stretch in the center of my room.
Kidding. I will fillet you if you even think about touching me.
One just threatened me.
That's so cool!
Not if they're in your bedroom with swords, it's not. Aya's buster sword, an ironing board of a weapon, leaned up against the wall. Lady Cassandra hadn't shown me her swords yet, but I figured she had something of the sort.
What do their stats say?
How do I read their stats?
Focus on them.
I glanced to Aya, and her stats appeared in my pane of vision.
Aya Duchig, level 10. HP 1313. Mana 0. Attack 262. Defense 145. Magic defense 98. Luck 15.
I'm looking at Aya's stats right now. They're pretty damn colorful. What do you need to know?
What level is she?
10, I believe.
And the other?
I turned to Lady Cassandra. Hold still for a second,
Sure.
she said, still staring at me curiously. Her stats appeared, also outlined by a colorful background.
Lady Cassandra, level 9. HP 1062. Mana 236. Attack 179. Defense 185. Magic defense 209. Luck 8.
Lady Cassandra is at level 9.
Call me Lady C. That sounds cooler to me.
I mean, Lady C. That's what she wants to be called.
Aya and Lady C. Is she a magic user?
Yep, she uses magic.
I can heal you.
She's a healer.
Actually, that's not true.
Wait, not true.
And the other, the Thulian, does she use magic?
Aya doesn't have any mana,
I could have just told you I can't use mana.
Aya said, mid-stretch. She's also kind of sassy. A throwing knife sunk into my headboard. Holy shit! Inches away from my face. I scrambled out of the bed and dropped to the floor, covering my head with my hands, all to the sound of Aya's laughter.
Don't you dare throw knives at him!
Lady C rolled up from the bed and placed her hands on the hilts of 2 swords sheathed on either side of her waist.
What's happening?
Iris asked, reading the concern on my face. They're about to fight. Wait a minute. My room isn't big enough for them to fight. Chill out, both of you. Aya looked at me with a wolfish grin on her face.
Fine, fine.
Apologize!
Lady C said. Aya scoffed.
I'm sorry for throwing a knife at Chase, but he'd be wise to watch what he says around me.
It's fine, just no bickering. That's my only rule. You both could kill each other, which I'd like not to happen. At least in my room, I said, as Lady C helped me up. I took a step back from her. How did you... I returned my focus to Iris's image on my iNet screen. How did she help me up? I asked, feeling a tingling sensation spread over me as if I'd just been touched by a ghost. They aren't real.
Why do you think the app is illegal?
Iris asked, an eyebrow raising and further accentuating her blue eyes. I shook my head. But it isn't physically possible. She just helped me to my feet.
No, you helped yourself to your feet, but your brain thought that someone was assisting you. It's weird. And you can watch TwitchTube Red videos of people doing crazy stuff as they think they're being guided by their hunters. This is why it's illegal. People have tried to fly.
I considered this as Aya returned to her vertical crunches. Not possible. I call bullshit. None of this is possible.
We need to meet. I'm finishing up at Pratt and can meet you in 40 minutes. The Boss Cat Coffee, how's that?
And you'll explain all this?
I will. I promise.
And you have a Monster Hunt code too, right? I don't want to do this alone. Iris bit her lip.
Like I said, I'll explain everything. Just be careful coming here. Don't let people know you're seeing them, and if it gets to be too much, close the app.
Got it. I'll close the app,
No, you won't.
Aya said, as she started another round of hanging sit-ups.
You already like us too much.
What are they saying to you?
One is taunting me and the other... I turned to Lady C to see a huge smile plastered across her face. The other is smiling at me. Iris started to giggle, but quickly suppressed her laughter.
Just be careful. Promise?
Promise.
And remember, shut down the app if it becomes too much.
Iris winked at me.
See you soon. Wait.
Yeah?
Don't try to catch anything until I explain how this works to you.
Catch anything?
I'll explain soon.
Chapter 2. Where the Children Play.
So, we're in New York?
Lady Cassandra asked as we stepped onto the street in front of my apartment.
I've read books about this city.
That's right, I said hurriedly.
And it's better than Old York?
Asked Aya. There isn't an Old York, at least not to my knowledge, I told her as we turned in the direction of DeBoss Cat Coffee.
Then it is a stupid name.
Aya said. Arrows moved through the air above us, and I could hear the sounds of the subway, which wasn't far from my home. A couple of hipsters on bikes stopped in front of us. Her hips swaying, Aya stepped around one of the cyclists and gave him a dirty look. That was something I wouldn't get used to for a while. Aya and Lady C were operating as if they truly existed and were as tangible as me, which I knew was impossible. Lady C skipped ahead, her armored skirt lightly slapping against her exposed thighs. "Don't go too far!" I called after her. A woman in oversized sunglasses and a maroon scarf wrapped around her neck gave me the hairy eyeball as she passed. She can't see who I'm talking to, I reminded myself. While Lady C stopped to look at a cat, Aya came up next to me and wrapped her arm in mine. Except it wasn't her arm. It was the invisible power she used on me earlier, back at the darkened arena. "I thought you couldn't use mana," I told her.
I can't.
"Then how are you holding my arm?" She stopped in front of me, blocking me from continuing on the sidewalk. It was fall in Brooklyn, and the trees had started to turn. Behind Aya, a soft breeze whipped orange and yellow leaves in the air, naturally attracting Lady C's attention.
Have you heard of Tritania?
Of course, the proximal world, I said. I wasn't a gamer. I was a bassist. But I had dabbled in the various virtual proximal worlds, and nearly everyone knew of Tritania, the famous fantasy world.
That's where I'm from.
Said Aya as she walked gracefully.
And where all Thulians originated from.
Okay, but what does this have to do with the magic you use? She cocked an eyebrow at me.
I told you, it's not magic.
Then what is it?
My ghost limbs, called Konoshlo in the Thulian language. They are what is left of my ancestral heritage, my dragon wings. But do not call me Dragon Woman.
Got it. I tucked my hands deeper into my jacket.
Just consider them long, invisible talons that can stretch a pretty good distance, at least 3 times my wings. You can call them ghost wings.
Now at the mouth of a quaint playground, Lady Cassandra went from happy-go-lucky to incredibly serious. She drew the 2 blades from their sheaths and dropped into a battle-ready position.
What do you see?
I asked her, her shoulders hunching as she dropped into predator mode.
Something is here, where the children play. Let's get it.
Aya brandished her huge sword as if it were the weight of a rapier. They took off into the playground. "Wait up, ladies!" A pair of women in exercise clothing passed me, one of them flipping the bird as she said,
Go fuck yourself, mister.
"Same to you," I called after her, secretly cursing myself for forgetting to keep it under wraps in public. I quickly caught up to Aya and Lady C just as they moved past the swing set. "Hey, I'm serious. We have places to go. No hunting, please. Not until I understand exactly what that is."
You have places to go.
Aya whispered, her blade turning as she gripped it with both hands.
We have Mithria to hunt.
"Mithria?" She turned to me.
You seriously have no idea what a monster hunter is?
I mean, I just installed the app like an hour ago.
Why would you install something without knowing what it is?
She shook her head, but if there was disappointment in her gesture, it was undercut by the mischievous grin on her face. "Look, I had a pretty bad day."
How bad? Want to talk about it for Alpha Baby?
"Are you mocking me?" She shrugged.
A little.
"I just did what Iris said. I lay down on my bed, put on my visor, and installed the app."
And you've didn't research anything about it.
The Thulian shook her head. To our right, Lady C started to climb to the top of a child's playscape, her sword still drawn. From where I stood, I could see up her skirt-like armor.
Mithria are what we capture here in your world. It's why we have rendered our services to you. We capture, you place them in your dojo, you train, we all prosper. You are our alpha, and we are your hunters. Need I explain more?
I heard a loud... Lady C ran along the tubing over a slide and leaped just as a... Is that a bear? The creature was a little larger than a typical bear cub. It still had a cute, firm face. What separated it from a normal bear was the armadillo-like armor on its back, stomach, and the upper portion of its arms and legs. It was also fast as shit. "Don't kill it!" I shouted instinctively.
It is not our job to kill the baby beardillo.
Aya said as she watched Lady C chase the cub in a circle.
Unless it gets out of hand.
It doesn't seem like it will get out of hand,
It will once its mother comes.
she said, tracking the cub, her elbow resting on the hilt of her blade, which she'd stabbed into the ground. A loud roar cut through the playscape, and I felt the ground shake as the creature's mother came running right at me. As casual as ever, Aya took her sword from the ground and got into a striking position, her blade at the ready as she tracked the Mama Baradillo's movement. Its stats flashed in front of me.
Baradillo, level 8. Class Terra. Subclass not applicable. Tokens 2. Special powers. Roll charge. Slide strike. Very biased.
Baring its razor-sharp teeth, the angry mama slid to a halt, snorting as she took in Aya and her sword. Aya said something in a language I couldn't understand as she pressed one foot off the ground and lifted at least 10 feet into the air. Superhuman? My first thought was replaced by a thought from the rational part of my mind. Supported by her ghost limbs. Aya, her blade now overhead, landed on the Mama Baradillo's hide. Both feet on the beast, like something out of a fancy rodeo, she brought her blade up and dug it deep into the Baradillo's back. The creature cried out in pain, and her cub, running at full speed into what would soon be the street, doubled back around towards its mama, only to be knocked sideways by Lady C's magic. It wasn't a lot of magic, nothing more than a gust of wind, but it was enough to send the cub tumbling. Newfound strength building from the fury of seeing her cub assaulted, Mama Baradillo rose onto her haunches, Aya still on her back, and twisted around, slamming her hardened shell onto the pavement, creating a crater in the process. Aya just barely managed to get out of the way in time, but the blast force sent her flipping away, her legs over her head.
Capture it, Chase! Capture it!
She screamed to me as soon as she recovered. How? I looked down at my hands and noticed they had a strange glint. Pressing my fingers and flicking them outward created a web of light that quickly disappeared. How? I asked aloud, as the Baradillo narrowed its eyes on me. I wasn't quite shitting bricks at this point, but I wasn't far off.
Capture it!
Aya cried, her eyes red with anger as she limped away. I looked down at my hands to see that they were glowing with light. How do I... Before I could react, the Baradillo's cub slammed into me and I was tossed to the ground. It reached its mother, and together, both of them disappeared.
Why didn't you capture it?
Aya approached me with her sword drawn, and as she had done in my bedroom, Lady Cassandra got between us.
Relax, Aya. He's new. Relax, huh?
Her orange eyes quivered as she took in my form.
We could have had a huge catch back there, but you screwed it up.
I scratched the back of my head. I have no idea what I'm doing, Aya.
Clearly.
Look, just... You know what? I'm shutting this little operation down for a moment, I said, gritting my teeth. I need a break.
I didn't yell at you.
Lady C said, her eyes suddenly sad. I know you didn't, but someone did. That's beside the point. I can take the criticism, but at least let me figure out what I'm doing before I get knocked over by another bear.
Beardillo. And it was a cub. If a baby Beardillo would have run at me, I would have sliced its head off.
Thanks, Aya, for the correction. And that's pretty gruesome, but you know what? I'm fine with that. Just need a breather. I felt a pain spread up the side of my body. It was odd to think that I hadn't actually been hit by the creature, that I'd actually thrown myself to the ground. I still didn't believe it. All of this seemed like bullshit. I'll bring you two back out after I know what I'm doing. As if they'd never existed in the first place, Aya and Lady Cassandra were gone in a flash. I also noticed that the app had closed down. Iris, have you got me too? I said as I turned towards the coffee shop. I figured a walk would be nice, even if I'd be late. Truthfully, I needed to process what I had experienced, and what had happened earlier that day at band practice. Not wanting to think about that, and not wanting to think about the fact that Thad had punched me in the face. I turned away from the playground and returned my thoughts to what had just happened. Did Aya say something about a dojo? Triggered by the thought, Google Face search results appeared on my retina. As I walked, I focused on the explanation.
A Monster Hunt Dojo is a special place created in the OMIB that an alpha can expand upon. Depending on the creatures captured, their classes, their demands, and Proxima wealth accumulated by the player, a Monster Hunt Dojo is completely customizable. As a player's collection grows, the player must customize the dojo to meet the Mythria's needs.
Mythria? There was that word again. Just thinking it created a definition on my iNet screen.
Mythria, noun, a portmanteau for the word's mythological creature, coined through the popular and now banned creature-capturing app known as Monster Hunt, created by the Proxima Company in 2083. Mythria can range from digital representations of mythological creatures to creatures used in the Proxima galaxy.
Okay, I thought as I crossed a street in need of repair. There were still stoplights, but since most vehicles were airborne, the streets were generally empty. But back to the dojo. Thinking of the dojo produced a carousel of pictures and videos on my iNet screen. My pain of vision. As I walked, I learned that there was quite a bit of upkeep involved with dojos. Catering to captured Mythria was an obsession of many hunters, so much in fact that people had downsized their real-world living locations and taken out loans and second mortgages so they could afford to customize their dojo. I hope this isn't one big hassle. I still couldn't understand why Iris had given me the code. She said it would be a way to make money to fund future musical endeavors, but I'd yet to see how this would pay out. From what I could tell, it was going to be the opposite. And OMIB? I recalled the word I had just read, and an explanation appeared. Basically, it was the glue that held digital worlds together. Got it. Of course, I'd heard of the Proxima Galaxy, and I wasn't lying when I told Aya I had visited several of the worlds. The Galaxy was the name for a collection of physical worlds that one could dive to. The worlds, many of them invented in the 2040s and 2050s, had been popular for decades. So popular, in fact, that people chose to live most of their lives in Proxima worlds rather than the real world. Sure, music worlds, which I could dive into right now and live the fantasy life of a famous musician, instantly able to play any instrument, perform with whoever I liked, and compose amazing songs aided by AI. But that wasn't me. Hand me a good bass and a tube amp and I'd be at home for hours, noodling, running scales, and working some crazy chords up past the 12th fret marker. A gust of air carried with it the smell of baking pizza. I licked my lips and looked across the street to a little pizza joint that had been there forever. There was usually a line to get inside, and today was no different. The line was short though, and I even thought about getting in line and ordering Iris a slice. But let the idea slip away when I saw the sign for DeBoss Cat Coffee. Might as well just get there and get the bigger explanation on this app.
Chase,
I turned right to see Iris standing with her backpack turned the other way so that it covered her chest. What are you doing here?
I smelled pizza and I thought I could get us both a slice.
She smiled warmly at me.
You hungry?
Chapter 3. Pizza Confessional. Iris wore a comfy turtleneck sweater a couple sizes too large. Her short, curly blonde hair was pulled back into two little ponytails, and she had on a thick pair of glasses with black and white checkered frames. She had a small amount of makeup applied, a little blush, and white pink eyeliner. She was the girl next door if there ever was one. Well, the girl next door grew up in Brooklyn, listened to indie bands, was into vintage fashion, and played several instruments. Most of the night of the one, Iris could move from keys to most stringed instruments in a heartbeat. I did not know if she played drums or not, but playing drums was somewhat relevant in 2090. And besides, she was a badass at playing the laptop, a vintage instrument if there ever was one. After we wolfed down our pizza, we walked to the coffee shop and took a seat on a bench outside. I have so many questions, I told her, cutting right to the chase.
I still think it is funny that you have a little harem going on.
Not at all my intention.
Yeah, but what guy wouldn't want to be surrounded by hot fantasy ladies?
I shrugged. Anyway, the two huntresses assigned to me are polar opposites. The dragon chick is kind of sassy, and she carries a sword seriously as tall as you.
The Thulian. She probably wouldn't like being called a dragon chick.
No. I'm just processing all this out loud. The other is like this kind of innocent warrior lady with two swords. I thought she was possibly the weaker of the two, but then I saw her go after a Mythcria and...
I told you not to hunt any Mythcria.
Iris said, her eyes going wide behind her thick glasses. It wasn't my choice. I was coming here, and Lady C took off after one.
Lady C?
That's what Lady Cassandra wants me to call her. She's the warrior one. Matikan, I believe. Iris's eyes flashed as she briefly scanned Google Face for more information on Matikans.
Okay. A warrior woman from Unigaya. Got it. And the Thulian's name?
Aya. Aya Duchik.
I wonder what that means in Thulian.
I didn't ask her. Anyway, like I was saying, they went after it themselves. Well, Lady C started, then Aya followed.
And did you capture it?
A look of frustration moved across her face.
We haven't even set up your dojo yet.
We? I let this part slide, happy to have Iris join me for anything, including something as nerdy as setting up a digital dojo. I didn't capture it. Like I said, I had no idea what I'm doing, so I just kind of let Aya and Lady C chase it around. Nothing much I could do, really. Aya almost killed the mother. Iris bit her lip.
The mother?
It started off as a baby Baradillo, then the mother came running.
Okay, stop right there.
She placed a hand on my shoulder, and I felt a small spark between us. Yeah?
First of all, you could have looked all this up on Google Face. You know that, right?
Yeah. But I figured it would be better to hear it from the source. She smiled softly.
That's so like you. Anyway, there's a lot you don't know about the Monster Hunt app. But the first thing you need to understand is how to capture something. And note that I said capture, not kill. Your hunters aren't actually with you to kill any of the Mythcria you come across. They are supposed to make it weaker so that you can capture it more easily.
I see. So that's why Aya was screaming for me to capture it after she'd stabbed her sword into the bigger Baradillo's back.
Exactly.
Then how do I capture them? I remember looking down at my hands and seeing them charge with some type of magic, but I wasn't able to use it. The magic was like a webbing between my fingers. I showed her what I meant by tightening and releasing my hand.
Once it is charged, I mean, from what I've read online, you simply throw it to Mythcria and it forms a net in the air. It should feel intuitive.
So I capture these things, and then what?
Everything you capture goes to your dojo, and it increases your stats.
My stats? I remembered seeing Aya and Lady C's stats, but not my own. Iris nodded. Her cheeks were red from the cold, but she wasn't shivering or anything.
You level up with the number of creatures you capture. Some people go buck wild and level up like crazy by just capturing any and every creature they've come into contact with. This can get expensive regarding your dojo. Remember, the more Mithria you have, the higher the effort.
Got it.
What you want to do then is to capture Mithria that have certain properties you're looking for. That, or if you just want them to be in your fighting. You can also capture with the intent to sell. There's also brawling, but I'll get into that later.
Yep, too much info at once. What's this fighting party? Let's start there.
If you think you were capturing all these creatures, you'll have to get a
I smirked at Iris. I thought I was capturing them for money. I mean, told me when you gave me the code, right?
I knew I should have explained this more before I gave you access. Okay, in a nutshell, you capture creatures to build your fighting party. Once you have a party of several creatures or more, you then can enter tournaments and fight other players' parties. Bingo. But remember, we're talking about Proxima dollars here, which you can exchange for real-world money. You can also capture Mithria, which can help you another thing.
Let's do it. You have 2 access codes, right? The smile on Iris's face shattered. You did have 2, right? You're going to join me, and we can do this together. Aren't we? That's what I thought the plan was. At least, that makes sense to me.
I can't join you. Give away one of the access codes.
She swallowed hard. To who?
Dad. Please don't hate me.
Iris said, turning away from me.
You gave one of the codes to Thad? Why the hell did you do that? He fucked us over today, Iris. You saw...
I punched my fist into my other hand.
You saw what he did to my fucking gear. He fucking stepped on my base and broke its neck. He kicked my amp over and crushed the tubes. He broke your laptop and your keyboard. He punched me in the face.
Relax, Chase.
Why the hell did you give that asshole a code?
It was before he did all that.
What happened earlier that day flashed across my mind's eye. I saw Thad, the cocky frontman for our band, having another one of his tantrums. High off designer intoxicants, he sucker punched me, thrashed our gear, kicked a hole in the wall, and stumbled out. I had never in my entire life experienced something like that before. Something so vile, so unnecessary. Why would you even think about giving him something like that? These codes are worth money, right? She gulped.
Thousands and thousands of dollars.
You just sold the code you gave me and rebought our gear. That would have been the fucking smart thing to do.
We can make so much more with the app.
There is no we. There is me. You gave the other app to Thad, remember? Iris's eyes started to water. Sorry. Please don't get upset, I said, moving closer to her. I'm just pissed about my gear. That was my stuff. I worked for 2 years to buy my Rickenbacker and my stack. It will cost so much to get that fixed up. Your laptop, your Juno 60, you should be pissed too. That thing is like 100 years old.
I know.
She said, tearing up.
I fucking loved that keyboard. My dad gave it to me.
Seeing her cry triggered tears in my eyes as well. To cover my emotion, I took off my glasses and polished them, focusing until the emotion left. Get our gear fixed. That's priority number 1. Why did you give me the access code? At least tell me that.
Because...
Because why?
Because... Thad and I were sleeping together.
No one likes hearing their dream boy or dream girl confess to sleeping with their arch enemy. Even if their arch enemy was just a thorn in their side a week ago. I shook my head at her. Why did you ever think this would be a good idea?
Are you serious right now?
she asked, her eyes narrowing at me.
Yeah. I mean, how am I supposed to do this by myself, Iris? I barely know how to play the game. I've got $30-something to my name, and I have these two warrior ladies who are polar opposites.
I'm going to help you. There are ways I can help.
Really? What ways are those?
I can help you in your dojo. I'm not restricted to things that take place in the Proxima Galaxy. If you give me access, I'll be able to help you there. And I may be able to help you capture them here.
How?
Just trust me, Chase.
I glared down at the cement.
Yeah, I trust you. Look, Iris, I have to go. I need a little time just to think about this and try to figure out how we're going to actually make money doing this.
I can come with you. We can talk more about it.
I considered this. Iris had been over to my place a dozen times before, but her apartment was much nicer than mine, so if we hung out, we usually met there. Also, she didn't have a freaking pipe cutting through her bedroom. No, not tonight. Just give me some time to figure this out. Chapter 4. These monsters won't hunt themselves. Alex, my roommate, was asleep on the couch when I finally arrived back at my apartment. Pretty much out of money and not getting any more fundage until the UBI check came through, I was forced to walk home. It wasn't a bad walk, but I was definitely tired. I lightly dropped my keys onto the table and tiptoed past Alex, a bear of a man who was as quiet as he was towering. I knew very little about him, even though we had lived together for over a year. He had a sense of humor, and he always paid his rent on time. But other than that, he usually kept to his room, occasionally venturing to sleep on the couch. Past Alex, I let myself into my room, ducked under the pipe, and flopped onto my bed. My mattress was on the floor, and other than a dresser and some music equipment, my room was pretty minimal. Just the way I liked it. Once my shoes were off, I moved over to my bass guitar case, brought it down to the floor, and opened it. "Fucking asshole, Thad," I whispered as I took in the destroyed instrument. The neck was broken, the strings hung loose, and one of the pickups was smashed in. Who the hell would do something like this? The notion to check in with Aya and Lady C came to me, and I figured it wouldn't hurt anyone. The Monster Hunt app appeared on my pane of vision, spinning as it enlarged. As if they had been there the entire time, Aya rested on the bed, and Lady C sat on the floor, a large book open in her lap.
You are never going to understand that book,
Aya told her counterpart.
You don't know that.
Lady C turned the page, bit her lip for a moment, and turned back to the first page she'd been reading.
So...
Aya shifted her weight to me. She moved her orange hair out of the way so she could rest on one hand. Instead of armor, she now wore a lacy black nightgown at odds with the slight green tint to her skin. With her hair moved away from her neck, I noticed a long, vertical tattoo of what I guessed was her native language. "So?" I asked. Something soft flashed across her slitted orange eyes.
Did you miss us?
I don't know if that's how I would describe it, but sure.
I know you missed me.
Lady C said, her eyes still glued to her book. She wore a pair of baggy pajama pants, her hair now unbraided. "Yeah, that's right. I missed you. But I shrugged playfully. "I don't know. You were pretty rude to me back in the park."
You had the opportunity to catch something and you didn't.
"That's because, I wanted to make sure it is the type of animal I'd like in my dojo."
You didn't check its stats.
I did, but not carefully enough. Just thinking this caused the Baradillo stats to appear before me.
Baradillo. Level 8. Class Terra. Subclass not applicable. Tokens 2. Special powers. Roll charge. Slide spike. Berry bite.
Berry bite?
A special attack. Could be useful for our fighting party. These things are tanks. They can go to the front lines and take the brunt of the attacks. Wait, You do know what a fighting party is, right?
Iris told me, I said as I sat on the bed.
Who is Iris again?
Lady C asked.
Isn't she your girlfriend?
No, I said quickly, anger swelling in my chest as I relived her confession. While Thad may have redefined the term asshole, he was handsome, confident, and his mixed heritage made him unique. His confidence made him a good frontman. He could get the crowd going, despite the fact that he was the least talented of the three of us.
Oh, sounds like someone has some conflicting feelings.
Aya said, rolling onto her back.
Did she explain that stuff about the dojo to you?
Yes.
Did she make you something to eat?
No, we bought food. Actually, she bought it. I'm broke.
That's why she doesn't like you. No one likes a broke guy. Don't worry.
She rolled up to a seating position and slapped my thigh.
We are going to make you lots of money. Of course, this money is for us too. The dojo, as it stands, is not inviting. How would you describe it, Lady Cassandra?
Lady C, please. And I'd describe it as, in need of work.
Is it worse than my shithole apartment?
There isn't even a hole to shit in there. There is so much to upgrade. In the dojo and in your pathetic life.
Thanks. A glance down and I could see that her robe had shifted some and I could almost see her breast. She caught me staring and didn't say anything. Sorry. Okay. So, back to money. Tomorrow, we start getting money. One thing I didn't ask Iris is about selling Mythcria. We can sell them, right?
Definitely.
Lady C said as she closed her book.
You're right, Lady Aya. This book is too hard.
Please just call me Aya. And I told you that you wouldn't be able to understand the Book of Time. Even if it is the high school textbook version scribed by Lothar Shane of Warinkla. It is an incredibly hard subject.
At least I tried, and I could understand a little.
Lady C got onto the bed next to me. Even though it was a full-sized bed, space was tight. I'm going to go to bed now.
You didn't brush your teeth.
Yeah, I'll do that first. Can I call on you both in the morning? Lady C shook her head.
We don't want to go back to the dojo.
Aya nodded in agreement.
It is too cold there. You really need to have a building made so that we can at least have a place to live.
There isn't already a building?
It is a completely open space. Practically a dark void. When you send us away, that's where you send us.
It's not too comfy. Maybe one day, when you're a better alpha, you'll get access to Everlife, and we'll be able to go there instead.
The way she told me this made me cringe. A better alpha? Talk about getting called out. I decided to focus on the other part of her statement. Everlife?
She'll explain later. Go brush your teeth, Chase, and choose where you'd like to sleep.
I chuckled as I took my glasses off. I'd like to sleep on my bed.
Sorry, bed is taken. Although there may be a space at the foot of the bed.
Morning came faster than I would have liked. After being kicked out of the bed twice, once by Lady C as she stretched her legs forward, and the second time by Aya, I ended up sleeping on the floor. I got up earlier than them, enjoyed a cup of coffee alone, and woke them up about an hour later, after reading more stuff about the app and its legalities. The Monster Hunt app itself had a ton of info for me, from local meetups and upcoming tournaments to online markets where Mythcria could be sold and traded. Good info to know. I wondered how they could have meetups, especially with the illegality surrounding the game. The thought sparked a quick explanation pieced together from a number of sources.
Monster Hunt meetups, while technically illegal, are often overlooked by law enforcement agencies, similar to early 20th century law enforcement agencies overlooking festivals and gatherings of marijuana users. Many agencies deem the meetups a controlled environment for the Proxima Live app to be enjoyed.
This got me thinking about how it was that the Proxima company was even able to run an illegal app. The explanation quickly materialized before me.
The Proxima Company is not allowed to hold the servers for the Monster Hunt application in the contiguous United States. To get around this restriction, the servers and technical support operations are hosted by countries that have less restrictions on iNet-based applications, which use augmented reality and Proxima Digital Neuronal Autoconstruct Systems, or DNAS.
It had taken me a few minutes to dig down and find some Google Face groups dedicated to monster hunting. From there, I used Auto Assist to scan through the posts from the last 6 months to see where the best place to hunt in Brooklyn would be. I didn't find much info. Even the message boards were secretive. But it seemed like parks were the way to go. Which was why the three of us now waited on the train platform with the intent of going to Brooklyn Bridge Park. Like I told you to back there, not a word. Rush hour for those traveling from Brooklyn to Manhattan had come and gone. There were still a healthy amount of people waiting to get on the subway, but I figured it'd be better to go now than to try during lunch hour. Aya pretended to zip her mouth shut. Lady Cassandra stood next to her with a book in her hands. She was a few inches shorter than Aya, and seeing her next to the Thulian revealed just how lean the half-dragon woman was. While Aya's armor looked fairly decent, Lady C's skimpy fantasy getup didn't seem practical at all. If I pretended we were going to a cosplay convention, it made it easier to see them next to the Brooklynites heading into Manhattan. Still, it was odd, and it took a lot of self-control to pretend that they weren't there.
Ooh, a train!
Lady C said as we heard the train approach. She was still buried in a book, something called Auric Rune and the Last Days of Unigaya by Lothar Shane. The sound of the train coming to a stop and the whoosh of wind that followed caused some distress for Aya. She stepped back, clenched her fists together, and cleared her throat. I whispered out of the corner of my mouth. Even stranger was the fact that I could see their reflection in the train's glass windows. Yet no one else could.
I will be fine,
She said in a way that indicated to me that she would not. The doors opened and a few people, mostly hipsters, spilled out. We pushed our way in, and I almost offered the only available seat. I caught myself in time, sat next to a sleepy-eyed man reading a copy of the New York Times.
I thought you'd offer that seat to me.
Aya stood near me, one arm raised so she could hold on to a free handlebar. While they could interact with the environment, most notably with stationary objects, moving objects such as other people caused a very strange thing to happen. Even now, as Lady Cassandra read her book, the bag of the woman standing next to her was pressed through her chest, which was unsettling to look at. As I got more used to the Monster Hunt app when it was active, I realized why someone would make it illegal. First, there was the fact that you could control someone else's mind by using it. What if someone was able to figure out a way to control Aya or Lady C remotely, and they told me to do something that I actually did? There was also the personal space of other people to take into account. If more people legally used Monster Hunt, it could cause quite a scene on something like a subway train. It could quickly become a public safety hazard.
I'm going to be sick,
Aya said as the train started to pick up speed. Damn it, Aya, I thought, as she started to retch. Lady C looked over at her, snapped her book shut, and closed her eyes, her throat quivering as she tried not to vomit.
I need to sit.
Aya said. But before I could offer her my seat, she bent forward and started vomiting all over a guy's shoe.
Shit!
I stood and was thankful, for once, that I was on the New York subway. Anywhere else, a dude standing randomly and cursing would have brought some attention. Not here. Hell, the guy next to me didn't even look up from his paper. Still not able to separate reality from augmented reality, I looked from Aya's fresh vomit to the standing guy's shoe, an apology on my lip. Of course, Aya's vomiting sent Lady C over the edge, and she projectile vomited through the woman standing next to her. I heard the guy ruffle his newspaper next to me, but he still didn't say anything. Fuck me, I whispered as I grabbed Aya's hand. I sat, brought her onto my lap, and whispered for her to close her eyes and keep still. "Faster, go back to the dojo," I whispered. Aya shook her head as she turned to wrap her arm around my shoulder.
No, we have to get used to this world.
She retched again and placed her hand over her mouth. "Close your eyes." That was an experience. I exhaled loudly as we exited the subway and turned to the Brooklyn Bridge Park. The annoying thing about getting to this area was that it forced us to go into the city and then loop back. There was also a transfer from J to F, which only complicated our time in the New York subway system. I noted this and planned to either use a bus or walk, if possible, whenever we traveled. Subway travel wasn't avoidable, but I could at least keep things simple for their sake. We left the Clark Street subway station, and as we walked, I and Lady C started feeling better. At one point, I got a little ahead of the two, and Aya quickly caught up with me using her ghost limb, preventing me from going forward. As real as this seemed, I wondered what it must have looked like for someone else watching me get stopped by an invisible force. I must have looked like a mime. We reached the park, and I told them to get ready. The temperature had increased, and I could smell meat from a hamburger joint not too far away. Rather than salivate, I focused on the task at hand. "We make our first catch today," I said as I looked down at my hand. It was charged, and as I stretched my fingers apart, a web of magic spread between them. Lady C unsheathed both her blades. From what I could tell already, Lady C was a bit faster than Aya, likely because of the weight of Aya's huge sword. And she seemed to be the one that would chase the creatures out.
And you won't mess it up this time?
Aya asked me. Thanks for the vote of confidence. And no, I'll do my part.
Then stay back and let us do ours.
I followed behind them now as Lady C moved through the park. She stopped every now and then to examine something, from a trash can to a trampled leaf. At one point, she called Aya over and showed her a smudge mark on the pavement. This really is like hunting, I thought, as they moved closer to the water's edge. I hope it's not a sea monster. Aya investigated the shoreline for a moment as Lady C pressed forward. A woman jogging along the main path passed them. She was dark-skinned and had her hair pulled back into a tight ponytail. Lady C's eyes went wide as she looked at the woman. "What are you doing?" I started to whisper as she took both her blades from the sheaths on her back. Aya unsheathed her ironing board of a sword and crouched, the blade resting against her shoulders. A flash of magic and Lady C was suddenly gone. I looked left to see her appear on the path in front of the jogging woman, both blades at the ready. The woman stopped jogging and dropped her arms to her side in a defensive pose. What the hell is going on? I thought as I started running over to them. A puff of black smoke engulfed the woman and her flesh dripped away, revealing a female clad in tight black robes that matched her chunky skin. Her head quickly morphed to that of a panther, and her hands formed large claws. Her stats appeared.
Skinwalker, level 7, class Algo, subclass Psi, tokens 2, special powers, morph, fear inducer, possess, trauma moth.
A skinwalker? The thought produced an instant definition from Google Face.
In Navajo culture, a skinwalker, Yinaldlushii, is a harmful witch capable of changing into and possessing animals. Yinaldlushii translates to goes on all fours and refers to the witch's ability to shapeshift. Not much information about skinwalkers is available outside of Navajo culture due to the indigenous people's reluctance to speak about the subject.
"Get that one!" I shouted, knowing all too well how beneficial it would be to have a shifter in my fighting party. Her blades in front of her now, Lady C engaged the skinwalker with a series of quick thrusts. The skinwalker was much faster than I thought she'd be. She avoided all but one of Lady C's attacks, her fast footwork allowing her to counterattack with a clawed uppercut. Shit! I ran towards Lady C, who had hit the ground and tumbled to the right. The skinwalker caught her first glimpse of me, and a sinister grin painted across her face. suddenly, she was Iris, her backpack over her chest, that kind look on her face. She wore an oversized sweater and a little skirt. Fishnet leggings ran down her legs and into a pair of Converse, and as she stared at me, she began to tilt her head to the side. Running up behind her, Aya had her blade raised and was just about to swing it down when I cried out, "Iris!" The smile still on her face. Iris narrowly avoided Aya's blade. "Get a hold of yourself," I whispered as a scorpion tail grew from Iris's lower back. The stinger bit into the ground, forcing Aya to jump up and away from its next strike. "It's not Iris," I whispered as Lady Cassandra rolled to her feet and braced herself. She took off towards the skinwalker, ready to finish the job. Coming up from behind the Navajo witch, Lady C lunged for her stinger. The witch cried out as Lady C cut through her scorpion appendage. Purple blood misted into the air as the shape-shifting witch hit the ground and came up as a towering stone creature. "Shit!" I said as I took in the creature's form. Easily 10 feet tall, the creature had bulky rock muscles and its back reminded me of a turtle shell. 1 foot off the ground, it slammed its heel onto the soil. Some small quake. Not quite knowing my role in all this, but figuring it couldn't hurt, I started yelling at the creature and waving my hands. "Hey! Hey!" I shouted as I took off towards the action. "Over here!" The big bruiser turned to me, lifted both fists, and smashed them together, causing a sharp gust of wind to knock me over. Shit! I hit the ground, my legs going over my head as I rolled backwards. Up on my feet again, and determined to give Aya and Lady C the distraction they needed, I waved my hands at the shapeshifter and hopped up and down. Growling now, the witch took a few powerful steps towards me, hell-bent on crushing me with its big foot. It was then that I saw Aya's blade tear through the witch's center mass. The stone monstrosity fell to its knees as her form changed back into her original form. Before she could shapeshift again, Aya's blade slipped out of her body, and Lady C, her swords held like open scissors, took her place behind the witch.
Now!
Aya called to me. Energy whirled around my hand as I lifted my hand to the skinwalker. A giant net made of light tore from the center of my palm, hit the witch, and the powerful Mithria was gone in a flash. My first capture. That was awesome, I said, marveling at my glowing hand.
That was very stupid of you.
Aya said as she approached me.
But we did it!
Lady C added.
And that's all that matters.
Chapter 5. I want to be attacked by Japanese wind gods. How did you teleport like that? I asked Lady C as I sat on a bench looking out at Manhattan. New York, even though I'd grown up here, never ceased to amaze me with its beauty.
It was a spell I taught myself.
She said as she sat down next to me.
And Aya thought reading the Book of Time was useless.
You're the one that said it was too hard to interpret.
The Thulian warrior said. She stood in front of us, her buster sword sheathed across her back.
I figured this one out. It's like a teleport spell.
Lady Cassandra explained.
But it is actually a spell manipulating time rather than a spell propelling me forward. Anyway, it took half my mana to cast it.
Worth it.
Definitely.
My iNet screen flashed as I received a call from Iris. As soon as I accepted the call, a live video of her appeared in the lower left-hand corner of my pane of vision, as if someone had strapped a camera to her head pointed down at her face.
Where are you?
Brooklyn Bridge Park. We just caught a skinwalker.
Nice! Let's meet.
I hesitated for a moment.
What? I wanted to show you the app I got that will allow me to help you catch them. Also, we should check out your dojo now that you have your first catch.
Where are you?
At Pratt. My class just finished. I'll be there as quickly as I can.
Iris is coming to meet us, I informed the two huntresses.
Ooh, your girlfriend.
Lady C slugged me playfully. Hardly.
We still have time to catch something else before she gets here and ruins the rest of the day.
Really, Aya? I haven't even met her yet.
It's an assumption I will put her line proven otherwise.
She turned away, a thin smile on her face.
Now, down by the water, I was tracking you.
She's taking an arrow. She'll literally be here in like 5 minutes.
Fine. I'll just strain.
Using her ghost limbs to suspend her body, Aya lifted herself up into the air. She tossed her body forward and practiced landing while drawing her blade. Meanwhile, Lady Cassandra pulled a book out of thin air and opened it across her lap. What are you reading now?
It's a history of the Koreans.
She said quietly, so Aya didn't hear her. Really? Why would you choose that subject?
I am curious about the ghost limbs.
They're just like invisible talents, right?
In a way, but I'm interested in the split between humans and dragons and why people wear different clothes. Titania has so much.
Cool. A message from the Monster Hunt app popped up on the left-hand side of my painted vision, and my eyes naturally gravitated towards it. The message reminded me that I had just captured my first Mithria, and it offered me steps in caring for it. I opened it and briefly scanned it through.
Congratulations. You have captured your first Mithria. Be sure to see Theodore again and make it a comfortable place to rest. Once you have 5 Mithria, you may start entering the hunt. We recommend taking the tournament to the. You may also learn more about how commercial is strong and here.
I glanced up to see Aya drop from the air, flip backwards, and land with an attack that caused a small percussive blast. That was great, Aya! I called over to her. Lady Cassandra looked up at the Thulian.
Impressive. That should help us flip an enemy if that's something we ever have to do.
Flip an enemy?
Like a giant turtle.
Or a mama beradillo.
Aya said. She raised into the air to practice the maneuver for a second time.
I will kill that bitch.
She was just protecting her cub.
I will kill her cub, too.
I want to keep her cub as a pet. Can I keep her as a pet?
Lady C pulled at my arm.
Please, Chase, please.
Sure. If we can capture the mother without killing her, you can keep the cub as a pet. Lady Cassandra hugged me.
You're the best, Chase.
Aya is standing over there, I told Iris as soon as she arrived. She wore the same pair of glasses she had yesterday, but now there were 2 tiny black sensors attached to the frames.
She is moving up and down, right?
Yeah, I believe she is practicing what it would be like to kill you and, body slam you with her ghost limbs.
That's nice to know. And Lady C is next to you, correct? Can she see us?
Lady Cassandra poked at my shoulder. Not exactly. She has installed something on her glasses that allows her to sense where you are, but she can't outright see you.
So she can't see me waving my book at her?
Lady C flapped the book in the air, causing her breasts to bounce. Nope, but she can sense that you are moving. Iris nodded.
I can't hear you either, but you can hear me, correct?
Lady C considered this for a moment.
Yes, I can hear her, but I don't really like the sound of her voice. What did she say?
Never mind.
I really need to get a code, but they're so rare nowadays.
Iris said, her face dipping into a frown. And you can't buy one?
Sure, if I had $20,000 in cash lying around and someone actually willing to sell theirs.
We really should have bought gear instead of having to install this. I can uninstall it and give you mine.
Don't do it!
Lady C said, tugging at my arm again.
You'll lose us if you do that.
Aya stopped going through combat drills and looked over at us.
You'd better not try to unload us.
You can't give it to me anymore.
Iris said, the wind rustling her cloak.
Trading won't work with the codes I gave you if you've already installed them. To stop the resale of Monster Hunt codes, this year's release of codes doesn't allow for the code to be sold or transferred once it's installed. If I were to buy a code, it would have to be an older one, or someone would have to give me theirs without first installing it. Anyway, we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Iris pounded her fist into her open palm.
Let's get hunting.
Aya passed right through her.
How is the cute little sweater girl supposed to help us?
The Thulian turned back to examine Iris more closely.
She does have a nice figure, but her clothes are too baggy. Do you think she is sexy?
I agree with Aya about baggy clothes. And there's nothing wrong with being short and sexy. You should take her shopping, Chase. Treat her. What are they saying?
Iris asked, her eyes wide with excitement. I swear my glasses had started to fog up. They are saying that you are beautiful and that your style is cool.
Thanks, ladies. I would never compliment a female on her frumpy sweater. And about both of your glasses, I would suggest that she get corrective surgery from one of the mind mages in Portos.
Having two invisible friends would take some getting used to, especially if they were talking shit.
What is it?
Iris asked. Just some mindless banter. Iris clapped her hands together.
I can't wait to meet them. Should we go to the dojo first, or do you want to hunt? I'm down for either.
Hunt.
Aya placed her hand on her neck and cracked it.
Definitely.
Dojo! I want to meet Iris in person.
Well,
Iris asked. Let's hunt around for a bit. We'll hit the dojo a bit later. Deal? Iris nodded.
Let's do it.
it's strange hunting with her around.
Aya said after we walked together for a few minutes. Relax, Aya. Iris looked at me and crossed her arms over her chest just as a cold gust of wind moved over the East River. Her face went from a smile to a curious stare. What is it? I asked her.
That's no ordinary breeze.
Aya gulped just as Lady Cassandra drew her blades.
Fujin, level 9, class Ventus, subclass Glacio, tokens 3. Special powers, Winter Gust, Death Wind, Toxic Tornado.
The wind's humanoid form flashed into view. It resembled an old man with blue skin, a white beard, and a demon-like face with bulging yellow eyes. He wore a leopard skin as a toga, and the claws jutting from his toes were sharp and yellow. Rather than move through the air, Fujin danced, 2 clouds billowing around him as he moved. Wait! I told them both as I looked at stats over. This one is high-powered. It's listed as Fujin. Aya cracked a grin.
I can test my new technique against this Fujin,
she said, her orange eyes tracking the breeze moving away from us.
You said Fujin, right?
Iris asked. Yep.
Let me see what I can find out first. Let's just track it for a moment.
Lady Cassandra considered this.
It does seem to be moving relatively slowly. What do you think, Aya?
The Thulian shrugged.
I guess we'll see if this girl Iris is helpful or not.
The 4 of us followed the dancing wind Mithria through the park, keeping a good distance as Iris did some research. Fujin stopped in front of a shrub, observed it for a moment, and moved on. We passed an Asian woman walking a Frenchie, the dog barking as soon as it saw us.
Okay, to confirm,
Iris said after the woman dragged her dog away.
Fujin's class is Ventus and subclass is Glacio, right?
Yep.
Okay then. Wind power as a main class and ice as a subclass.
That's what Ventus and Glacio mean? Aya shook her head.
You, of all people, should know this.
He's still learning. Fujin is a Japanese god of wind, with possible relations to Vayu, the Hindu god of wind,
said Iris as we curved around a bend. Any weaknesses? We can get into the lore later. As we reached a clearing, Fujin stopped and turned to us. His eyes flared iceberg blue, his bushy eyebrows growing in size as a snarl formed on his face. Suddenly, he was airborne, twisting into a whirlwind of fury as he flew directly at me.
Oh, fuck!
I was tossed backwards. Aya dove left, Lady C right. Iris remained standing, a funny look on her face.
It's getting away, Iris!
I said, trying to regain my composure. Why are you smiling?
Well, I've seen videos of it, but I had no idea what it would look like from my perspective if you got attacked. That was interesting. I'm jealous.
Her face dropped into a frown.
I want to be attacked by Japanese wind gods.
Tell her to shut up!
Aya said as she took off towards the wind god, Lady Cassandra following Fujin with both blades at the ready. Aya tried the move she'd just learned. She catapulted herself up into the air and turned towards the ground. Before she could activate her new ability, a giant gust of wind threw her off her trajectory, causing her to crack her skull on the ground before being swept up into a mighty gale.
Aya!
I shouted as her body landed in the East River. The woman nearby with the French bulldog looked at me funny.
Shh.
Iris said, hardly able to contain the excitement on her face.
Look, give me the quickest play-by-play you can. I'm almost onto something here. I've got like 6 search engine assists running.
Fujin tossed Aya into the East River. The wind god has whipped himself into a tornado and is chasing Lady C. Maybe we should fall back.
No. Let me just... That's it.
She looked at the Asian woman with the Frenchie and decided to yell something crazy anyway.
Lady C, run sideways! Sideways?
Lady Cassandra did a one-armed cartwheel and narrowly avoided a fist made of Arctic wind.
Trust me!
Much to my surprise, Lady C started doing a side shuffle. The wind god chased after her, making the same exact skipping movement.
Where am I supposed to go?
She shouted to us.
What's happening? You have to remember to give me play-by-play, Chase.
She's running sideways and...
Ah!
Shit. She fell over.
The movement should confuse the Fujin. At least that's what I'm reading here.
Iris said, her pupils darting left and right as she read the information she'd curated on Google Face.
If it freezes, try to catch it.
A tornado scooped Lady Cassandra up, and just as it was about to body slam her on the pavement, it stopped. Fujin's eyes glazed over, Lady Cassandra still in the air above his body. A look of confusion spread across his fierce blue face, and I knew my time had arrived.
You're a genius, Iris!
I ran toward the Mythgria with a charging hand. I stopped, took a step back onto my back foot, and willed my power forward. A net of light sprayed forth from my fingers and engulfed the wind god. He disappeared in a flash, and Lady Cassandra fell to the ground with a solid...
Did you catch it?
I did!
I raced over to Lady Cassandra and lifted her into my arms.
Sorry I wasn't fast enough to catch you.
It's fine.
Came her reply, her dark eyes softening.
You're here now.
We both turned our heads just in time to see Aya walking out of the water, sopping wet and pissed as hell. She sheathed her sword, the bitter scowl on her face showing no signs of leaving.
Are you okay?
Lady Cassandra asked, still in my arms.
Not a word.
She told us both as she strained water out of her hair.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Lady C said genuinely.
I'm glad to see you're okay, though.
What are they saying?
Aya is pissed that she got thrown into the water. Lady Cassandra is, well, she's her normal self. Lady C looked at me and smiled.
You're cute, Chase. You know that?
I didn't know that.
You are. And I can totally tell that Iris has a big crush on you.
I raised an eyebrow at her. Can I set you down?
No, you may not. I'm comfy where I am. Let's get to your dojo,
Iris said.
Don't you want to see what it looks like?
Sure, but where should we dive from? Iris shrugged.
My place is closer and I have 2 visors. Her place is probably nicer, too.
I'm not carrying you all the way there.
We'll see about that.
Chapter 6. Dojo with no mojo.
Interesting.
Aya said as she stepped into Iris's efficiency apartment.
There is no pipe here. Look, Lady Cassandra, I can walk without having to limbo. American women have style. American men are slobs.
Iris's apartment was basically one long room about 15 feet wide. There was a kitchen cut into the wall on the right, adding 2 more feet of space, and a bathroom near it. Rather than a bed, she had a futon at the back of the room, pressed against the wall. A single window near the kitchen gave the space some light. A couple of instruments rested in the corner, a small collection that included an acoustic guitar and a ukulele.
Limbo?
Lady C stepped in the room, her sheathed blades clinking as she walked.
I am unfamiliar with limbo.
Draw your sword and hold it at chest level.
Lady C drew her sword and Aya walked over to her.
A limbo is when you do this.
Aya spread her legs wide and leaned backwards, revealing the tops of her breasts to me. She caught me looking, raised an eyebrow, and started shuffling forward. I started to chuckle.
What are they doing now?
Iris asked as she dropped her bag near the door.
Also, shoes off.
Got it, I said as I slipped out of my Vans. And to answer your question, Aya is teaching Lady C how to limbo using a sword.
Good to know. Ah, that's limbo. I understand your joke about the pipe in Chase's room now.
Lady C said as Aya stood.
Yes. While it is an eyesore, it is useful for exercising. Maybe we should put a pipe in the dojo.
Come on.
Iris grabbed my wrist and led me over to her futon.
An intimate gesture,
Lady C said as she watched us walk past her.
I'm noting that.
Aya shrugged.
I'm not convinced he would know how to handle a real woman. His arms don't have a lot of muscle and he wears glasses.
Hey! I called over to them as Iris let go of my arm. She quickly turned the futon chair into a bed and instructed me to lie down. Just to fuck with me, Aya climbed onto the bed and leaned on her hand, her red hair falling over the side of her face.
You ready for us?
Get off the bed, I started to tell the Thulian.
I'm not on the bed yet.
Iris was now rummaging through her closet.
I need to change sweaters.
I looked over at her just in time to see her sweater come off, revealing a Mither Fickers tank top. You bought one of their shirts? I asked, recalling the Mither Fickers were a punk band we played a few shows with in Williamsburg. While our band, the Lennons, had a sound that didn't mesh well with the Mither Fickers, the concert was still one of our more lucrative performances.
The merch lady gave me one.
Iris pulled a sweater over her head which read brunette. Brunette, huh?
Blonde was taken,
she said as she moved over to the bed.
Where is she? I don't want to lie down on top of her.
Aya, get off the bed. The Thulian huntress pushed herself up, glared at me in a flirty way, and used her ghost limbs to push herself away from the futon. She's gone now.
Good.
Iris grabbed a neuronal visualization visor she had next to her bed.
I have an extra one. It was Thad's. He brought it over and never came back to get it. It's next to your side of the futon.
I sat up and found the NV visor. It was possible to log into the Proxima Galaxy where my dojo was located using the internet that played out on my retina, iNet, but the NV visor allowed for better immersion. Iris's visor, or rather Thad's, was a newer model, sleek, lightweight, and gunmetal gray. I strapped it to my head and ignored the fact that I got a scent of Thad in the process. He always wore some cologne, not too sweet, but also not too musky. The visor's sleek design made it easy to lie down. I tried to ignore my olfactory senses, knowing that I wouldn't be able to smell anything once we reached the dojo.
You log in first, and once you do, give me access.
Got it. Sine waves appeared as soon as I placed the visor over my head. The famous Proxima tone, created by famous ambient musician Brian Eno, played in the background. I made sure the earbuds were in, and using the handshake between my iNet operating system and the Proxima dashboard, I scrolled down to the dojo icon. Everything started spinning around me. Soon, I stood in an all-encompassing black space, not unlike the space where I first met Aya and Lady Cassandra. Before I could do anything else, I focused on the semi-transparent Settings icon at the top of my viewing pane. I selected Other Users and allowed access to Iris Snout, who had already made a request. Seeing her name there made me briefly remember how much she hated her last name. Personally, I thought it was cool, that it complimented her first name. But she didn't agree with me. As Iris's avatar spawned, my vision pane lit up with instruction prompts on how to set up my dojo. You know how to do this stuff, right? I asked her.
Yep.
Then I'll ignore the prompts. Iris's base Proxima avatar looked a lot like how she looked in the real world. She still wore glasses, although her glasses here had bigger lenses, and the sweater that covered her upper half was double the size of a sweater she'd wear in the real world. On her legs were a pair of tights, which dipped into ankle-high Converse, the laces untied.
She seems a little frumpy.
I spun around to find Aya standing in the darkness. As soon as I saw her, the square beneath her feet lit up.
I think she's cute,
said Lady C. who was a few feet away from Iris and to the right. Just as it had happened for her counterpart, as soon as she spoke, the tile beneath her feet lit up. A quick glance down, and I saw that I, too, stood on a backlit tile. If I took a step forward, I'd step onto another tile, and the one I'd previously been standing on would disappear. I turned, trying to understand the vastness of this place. I could see nothing except black for miles on end. Above me, I saw the twinkle of stars and streaks of purple and blue. Below me, I saw utter darkness, aside from the tile I stood on. It was a bit overwhelming. I can see now why they don't like being here, I thought as Iris introduced herself.
Iris,
She said as she thrust her hand out to the Thulian. Iris's hand moved up and down, but it didn't seem like Aya was actually shaking her hand. Ah, her ghost limb. Lady Cassandra performed a small curtsy and extended her soft hand to Iris.
nice to meet you.
She said, with a big smile on her face. Iris turned back to me.
Okay, let's get started. You should have starter funds to get your feet wet. Proxima dollars are tradable on various coin exchanges, but you'll want to spend these ones because this place sucks at the moment. You should have 10,000.
I looked at the lower right-hand portion of my viewing pane and saw a silhouette of a house. Focusing on this kicked the house to the left and flashed a new set of data on my viewing pane.
Proxima dollars, 10,000. Spent, 0. Loan, 0.
I can take out loans?
Yes, but let's not get into that yet. The interest rate is ridiculous, and unless you know you have some cash coming in, I wouldn't do it.
Got it. We can mess with that later. Okay, so 10,000. Lady Cassandra approached me, her breasts bouncing once she stopped.
I'd like a small personal cottage with stained glass windows and a library.
I felt Aya's ghost limb land on my shoulder and lightly touch the side of my neck, sending a spark down my spine.
It would be better for me if you created a 2-room cabin that had an attached gym.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves, ladies.
Thank you, Iris, I thought as I moved away from Aya's ghost limb. Aya turned to Iris and glared.
I see whose opinion matters more around here.
Iris continued smiling at her.
Don't feel like that. We have to set up some basic things like a training ground before we can start really customizing the place. We also need a Mythcria quarters.
Lady C's shoulders slouched forward.
I hate being responsible.
Okay, so, basic training ground. Will it be indoors or outdoors?
Indoors would be nicer, but it probably doesn't fit your budget.
She's right.
Iris raised her hand and several designs appeared before her. With the flick of her wrist, the design zipped over to me. Stopping on a design caused it to enlarge so that it filled the space between us. Each design was outlined in red and green, the green signaling areas that made the design unique, things like a track, a sand pit, a large pond, and so on. Portions rimmed in gold meant that this area had further customizable features. After looking through them all, I chose a space called Base Field B that featured a large field, a track around the field, and a starter pond in the northwest corner of the space. The cost? A quarter of my budget.
Proxima dollars, 7,500. Spent, 2,500. Loan, 0. Not bad.
Iris's glasses turned white as she researched basic dojo design on Google Face.
Just as I suspected, there are bonuses that come with choosing certain designs and add-ons. The space you chose, Base Field B, has the perk of doubling the roaming space available if you add a meadow. Roaming is nice, for animals and humans. And by adding a meadow, you are naturally given a rocky terrain, good for Ventus classes, aka wind classes. And you're given a meeting ground. Further, back to the meadow part, adding a meadow will allow for organic life to begin to flourish in this space. Eventually, you'll be able to add a sun and basically build your own world, but that's another day. You have to first get the seed planted. Literally.
Cool. So I'll add a meadow. And we need to go over classes.
We will later.
The meadow cost 1,500, but it seemed like a good investment for the dojo. I noticed there were other options for different levels that were grayed out. What's with these other options?
I'll I'll explain in a bit, but long story short, as you progress and level, you'll be able to unlock more features for the dojo.
Got it.
You've made a track, which is great, but no space for pull-up bars and other exercise gear.
Aya commented. Right, I said, as I scrolled through the options. At 500 Proxima dollars, adding a strip of workout gear wasn't too expensive. There were upgrades available, but I figured this would satisfy Aya for now. I made my selection, and a series of pull-up bars and other structures to aid in calisthenics took shape on the right-hand portion of the field.
Proxima dollars, 5,500. Spent, 4,500. Loan, 0.
Thank you.
Aya
said, as she lightly tapped my cheek with her ghost limb.
You should have like 5,000 left, right?
That's right.
Crap, it's not a lot. But it should be enough for a fairly decent Mithria quarters. And what about us, Chase?
Lady C asked.
Don't you care about us?
I couldn't help but smile at her. Your personal dwellings will have to come later. We're going to make this place great. But we need some capturers, and we need a place to store them where they can flourish.
Fine.
Aya mumbled something in Thulian that sounded like a death threat. So, I should just choose a design? I asked as I backtracked through the training ground menu to find the base Mithria quarters. They were pricey.
No.
Iris smiled.
I have a few that I've already looked at and downloaded for you.
How did you know we were going to design the dojo today again?
Just a hunch. Check these out.
Her hand glowed as a few designs zipped over to me. First thing I noticed was that we were standing where the quarters would be. All around me now were red and green grid lines that showed the architectural outline of the potential space. I looked up and saw the upper rooms, looked down and saw the basement. I can't really get a sense of it from where I'm standing.
Minimize it with your hand.
I squeezed my fingers together, and the large outline instantly compressed until it was about the size of a basketball. A square basketball, but at least it was now manageable. Iris had selected 3 different types of quarters, each with their own advantages. The first was a 4-story space that included an expansive basement. It was spacious, and there was room in the left wing to expand indefinitely. The cost? A mere 4,000 Proxima dollars. It was definitely an option, but I had a feeling there was a catch. The second space she selected looked more like a skyscraper than the first. At 9 stories high, I liked the usage of the space, but I didn't like the cost. At 15,000 Proxima dollars, it was well over budget. I thought you said I shouldn't take out a loan to buy a place, I told Iris. Lady C approached me and politely reminded me that she'd like her own cabin. Got it. In due time.
You can take a mortgage out to pay for your Mithria quarters. No interest there, and it is something that people are encouraged to do.
Why does that seem like a bad idea?
I don't think it is a bad idea.
The Thulian stood with her arms crossed over her chest, glaring at me as if to say, "Can we wrap this up?" Let me check out the third option. The third option resembled the first. It was a 3-story building constructed like the Applesoft headquarters in Palo Alto. It provided plenty of space in the courtyard at the center of the big ring, but it didn't seem like there was much room for expansion. Let's go with the first one. No debt, and we'll have 500 left over.
That's another thing. You also need a room for splicing and the equipment necessary to combine Mithria. I guess the basement in the 4-story place will do it, but that is a little Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
You can combine Mithria?
Once you have a bunch of Mithria, you'll want to actively combine them and see if you can create more powerful creatures for your fighting party. But I guess we can cross that bridge when we get there. And you aren't quite at the right level to do that. I believe you need to be at least level 3. Will a mortgage cover the cost of the splicing equipment?
Iris bit her lip as her glasses again turned white. After scrolling through a bunch of data, she nodded.
It would.
I want to go with the 4-story place. We don't need 9 stories, at least right now. And from what I can see here, I pressed an icon that said customize and saw that I could add additional stories in the future for 10,000 Proxima dollars per story. Yep, just as I expected, it's customizable vertically and horizontally. I selected the 4-story building and agreed to purchase it. As if pushed forward by a gust of wind, the 4 of us were moved about 100 feet away as construction began on the house. This was purely for show, and it was fun to see cranes and tractors drive onto the scene and quickly construct the place. What made it even odder to watch was the fact that there were no people involved. After the heavy-duty vehicles finished their work, the bricks stacked themselves, as did the floors. Once the place was fully constructed, Fujin, the Japanese wind god, and Skinwalker, the Navajo witch, took shape at the back entrance to the quarters. They stood there, Fujin floating with his feet on a small cloud, and Skinwalker in a battle-ready position with her eyes narrowed on me. "Can I talk to them?"
Of course you could talk to them.
Iris grabbed my hand and took me over to the two Mythcria.
It's a good idea, actually, to make friends with them.
"Chase," I said, extending my hand to Fujin. Wind swirled around us as he approached me. He bowed his head slightly and his form shattered into millions of tiny shards. These shards lifted into the air and speared into my body.
+3 tokens.
Tokens? I asked Iris as one of the bedrooms on the 4th floor of the Mythcria quarters flickered on.
He's just being dramatic. You already had these tokens once you captured him. You get tokens by capturing Mythcria, and tokens allow you to advance to the next level. You can trade and sell them too. I'll explain all this later.
The Skinwalker approached me, and as she did, her skin rolled back to reveal... I gasped. Thad now stood in front of us, and it freaked out Iris just as much as it bothered me. It also got me thinking about something that I hadn't discussed with her yet. Before I could tell the Skinwalker to knock it off, she was back to her normal form, in her dark robes with her powerful, alluring eyes locked on me.
"My name is Altsoba,"
she said, her voice androgynous. "Chase. I'm Chase."
"I see."
Iris cleared her throat. I saw the inside of her glasses light up, and knew she was researching the Skinwalker.
You can read our thoughts?
"I can."
And your name?
Iris started to ask.
"It means all are at war. A fitting name, considering my addition to your party."
With that, Altsoba's form shattered, formed a spiral of cosmic dust, and flew into my chest.
+2 tokens.
I glanced up at the Mythcria quarters and saw a light in one of the middle bedrooms come on.
That was unsettling.
Yeah, it was.
She may become one of the most powerful ones we capture.
Aya said as she approached us.
But we will see.
So, back to the tokens.
Do you see the blinking icon on the top portion of your dashboard, near the settings icon?
I see it.
Focus on that. Alpha, Chase Knowles, Level 1. Current capture, 2. Tokens, 5. Tokens to next level, 5. Hover over current capture, and you'll see that each is worth a certain number of tokens. Altsoba, Skinwalker, Level 7. Class, Algo. Subclass, Psi. Tokens, 2. Special powers, Morph, Fear Inducer, Possess, Trauma Mock. Fujin, Level 9. Class, Ventus. Subclass, Glacio. Tokens, 3. Special powers, Winter Gust, Death Wind, Toxic Tornado.
I see. Together they are worth 5 points, and I need 5 to get to my next level. Makes sense?
Yep. And this doesn't necessarily mean that one is better than the other. Having a shape-shifting Mythcria may be more useful than a wind god, but Fujin gets a bonus point for being a god.
And what's the point of leveling if I can't fight myself?
Each level you get increases the level of your huntresses. Your huntresses are at level 9 and level 10.
Aya and Lady C's stats appeared, much more colorful than the Mythcria. I nodded. Makes sense. And I can spend tokens?
Yes, they have Proxima dollar value and can be traded. The only issue with doing this is you can decrease your level by spending too many tokens. Let's say you are at level 2 with 11 tokens. You spend 3, and now you're back to level 1. Your huntresses will also lose a level.
Do not touch my level.
Will this number fluctuate if I fuse Mythcria? You said I could do that, right?
No, but fusing Mythcria is expensive. So let's deal with that later. Finally, do you see the part that says tokens? This is definitely something that's important.
I see it.
You get tokens for completing tournaments, finding rare Mythcria, and if you're lucky and have the funds, you can set up a mining operation that mines for tokens here in your dojo. Tokens will get you all sorts of things, from rare weapons for your huntresses to access to Everlife.
Everlife? Why do I feel like I've heard that before?
Because I told you about Everlife. Can we please go back to the real world now? I'm bored.
I can't see you in the real world.
And I can still see you.
Iris looked at Aya funny for a moment. Never mind her, I said, stepping between them. 2 more questions before we go back. First, what is Everlife?
Everlife is...
It is the goal of all alphas and hunters.
Lady Cassandra said.
It is the source world of everything we go after in your world. If you want to capture bigger, stronger, and better Mythcria, you must go to their place of origin, where you can unlock secrets and learn of exclusive brawls and tournaments.
So, I would capture them there? Iris shrugged and looked to the 2 huntresses.
Do either of you know?
Lady C shook her head.
I've never been.
Same here,
Came Aya's reply. Finally, explain the magic classes to me. I'd like to get a better handle on that.
It's on your dashboard. Click Mythcria and go to Classes, and you'll find the explanation there. Algo, Algorithmic Magic. Chrono, Time Magic. Fumus, Gaseous Magic. Glacio, Ice Magic. Ignis, Fire Magic. Lume, Electric Magic. Mortem, Necrotic Magic. Psi, Psychological Magic. River, Water Magic. Sana, Healing Magic. Terra, Earth Magic. Ventus, Wind Magic.
Ah, it makes sense now, I said aloud as I parsed through the information. The names of the various magic classes mostly had Latin roots, and I was familiar with a few of the terms aside from Ignis, Sana, and Ventus. Iris smiled.
If you need anything else, it's likely somewhere on your dashboard.
I can help too.
Lady C offered. Great, thanks. Is everyone ready to go back to New York?
only if we can go hunting.
Chapter 7. Mortem Mythcria. We need 5 Mythcria to join tournaments, right? I asked as my NV visor powered down. 20 or so updates flashed on my iNet screen, but I ignored them. They quickly faded into the background as I sat up, waiting for the visor to tell me it was safe to remove.
That's right.
I heard Iris say next to me. There was the Baradillo back at that playground, I said as the NV visor powered down and the words, "You may remove the visor," flashed. I took off the headset and turned to Iris, watching as she too waited for the prompt.
Lady Cassandra sat at the edge of the bed, her shoulder to me.
As soon as I saw her, she looked at me over her shoulder and offered me a soft grin as she swept some of her brown hair out of her face.
Glad to see you again.
We just saw each other.
I mean, here in New York. Ooh, I'd love to explore New York. Are there any big shopping districts we can go to? Maybe some theaters.
I started to laugh.
What is it?
Iris said as she placed her rigged glasses over the bridge of her nose, which allowed her to at least see imprints of the huntresses. Lady C wants to go to Broadway and hit up some shopping.
That would be fun.
See? She agrees.
I scoffed. She leaned against Iris's dining room table, her arms crossed over her chest.
Of course she agrees. She is a female and she'd directly benefit from going to these places.
She narrowed her eyes at me.
You are some sort of musician, correct? I remember the instruments from your room.
Correct.
Play this guitar.
Yes! Play for us. That would be so sexy.
They're asking me to play your guitar, I told Iris, my cheeks turning red. They think it would be sexy.
Sexy? I guess that's one way to describe it. Want me to play ukulele for them too?
I thought we were going hunting, I told Aya. She shrugged.
What harm could one song do? I need some more music before I capture our next Mythcria.
War music? I turned to Iris. She's asking for war music.
Would that be like early 21st century death metal?
I have no idea. Iris walked over to get her guitar and her ukulele, then returned to her bed and handed me the acoustic. I thumbed an open E to see if it was in tune. As soon as I did this, an app kicked into gear on my viewing pane, showing me how far away I was from true E. With a quick adjustment, I tuned the first string and worked my way down. E, A, D, G, B, E. Iris quickly tuned hers up, G, C, E, A, and smiled at me. What do you want to play?
I thought you'd make that decision.
Iris started playing a slow rendition of Happy Birthday and singing in a sultry voice.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Aya. Happy birthday to you.
Aya practically attacked Iris with her buster sword.
Why did you stop? Keep playing. Bravo, bravo. It is not even my birthday, yet I am overcome with joy.
Aya loves it.
Let's play them something original.
Got it, I said, reverting to bass mode. While I could play acoustic guitar, it was just as easy to focus on the lower two strings and do some bass work. Iris looked at me uncertainly.
How about I Know You're There? I mean, it is kind of appropriate.
But Thad started that one.
Yeah, but you and I wrote it,
she said, and just mention of this fact triggered a memory of us in my bedroom working out the song, which was based around a repetitive chorus. Are you sure?
I definitely want to hear it now,
said Lady Cassandra. Nodding my head, I counted us off using my fingernail on the front of the acoustic guitar. After a breath, I started palm muting a single, drony note. I started singing and Iris joined